Welcome, everybody, to Ordinary Visionaries. Today, we're doing something a little different. I usually interview someone else about how they're an ordinary visionary, and today, someone else, namely Patrick Summar, my very close friend, is going to interview me about ordinary visionaries. So, first of all, thank you, Patrick. Patrick's, what's your tagline for your business?
I call myself the business coach with a whole life approach.
The business, and not only that, it rhymes, which is great.
Because I'm part of a networking group, and they look for that kind of sound bite. And basically, I'm a life and business coach for privately held business owners, mid-sized companies.
So when I thought, who could interview me, the only person that popped into my mind was my friend Patrick Summar.
Well, it's an honor. It's an honor.
He knows me the best. I mean, we used to be roommates.
Well, not the same room. We were flatmates. Let's not get any closer than we already are.
Yeah, we lived on a house on Haight Street with a big place with 5 bedrooms, and a lot of people lived there. And I lived there for a number of years. Met Patrick that way. Got to know him. We've maintained our friendship over the years, and that was like close to 40 years ago. So.
And you've been a real mentor of mine as well in the marketing space, and helped me, encouraged me, helped me, taught me, and I've used what you've taught me to be successful, very successful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, let us start. Ask your question, Patrick.
Well, as you know, you like to start these interviews with the key question, which is, what makes you an ordinary visionary? What makes you an ordinary visionary, Robert?
Okay. Well, what makes me an ordinary visionary is I help people make their possibilities real. And, as a self-employed professional, as a marketing coach, what I did is I helped independent professionals market their services and attract clients. So that's a big part of making their vision real. If they didn't have clients, they couldn't have a business. So I did that kind of work with people for 40 years, What's your business? What's your message? How do you communicate it? Who's your audience? What are your goals? Where are you going? All of that stuff. So I've been doing that kind of thing for forever. But now, in my retirement, I call it retirement because I'm working hard just for no money. So what I'm doing is helping people articulate and clarify their visions.
Beautiful.
And the whole ordinary visionary thing is sort of, the concept is expanding as I go, but it's really to inspire people to own their own ordinary visionariness. It's like, realize, I'm also an ordinary visionary, and I have possibilities, and I can make things real. And the depth of that seems to be infinite. So the more that I talk to people about it, the more I write about it, the more I think about it, the more I see that it's such a big key is to own one's own vision or visions.
Yes, beautiful. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for 40 years. When did you first create the vision to work with small business owners and single shingle entrepreneurs? Like when did vision first start showing up in your career life?
Well, I'd really been self-employed my whole working life. I left high school and teamed up with a friend, and we created a health food store. And then they left, and I took it over, and I ran this health food store for a number of years. And so I've always had self-employment in my blood. I've only had a few jobs in my life.
So one of your core visions was being self-employed. Yeah.
Well, it really, I never articulated it that way. I just moved towards that. I liked creating my own thing. I was always, as a kid, I liked to do projects and think up things and design things. And art was my favorite subject in school. And, I just like to be on my own. And also I'm kind of headstrong and don't like bosses.
Yeah, you're not really employable.
Yeah, I'm not employable. So,
so you had to figure out how to make a living on your own.
So, I'd had a business selling exercise equipment for a few years, and then that I went out of business. The business changed. I couldn't anyway. That changed, and I figured what I wanted to do next. And I can't remember exactly how it started, but I created a time management system, and I designed it, and I created a binder, and then I created my very first workshop, and I did it in my home on
What year
Linda.
was that, Robert? When was that?
It was 1984.
Okay. Because
And I created my first workshop.
I met you in 1989, so that was only 5 years later or 4 years later.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't start with doing marketing. I started helping people with getting organized, but it also had to do with goals and plans and all that stuff, all the things that I've learned over the years and what I've done. And interestingly, I didn't even remember this. My first course I called Dreams into Reality. So we're coming back full circle. I read a lot of success literature, everything you can imagine, and a lot of spiritual literature. And, in the first 10 years of my business, I read over 500 books on business and personal growth and marketing and selling and achieving your goals, all that kind of stuff. I just infused myself with that.
Right. Self-education.
And, I still have the notes. It's in my files right here. I ought to look at it someday. All the notes for the Dreams into Reality workshop. It's all there, step by step.
That'd be interesting to go back and look at it, right?
Yeah, it would. So I've always been driven by that. It's like, what do you want? What are your goals? I studied Napoleon Hill and Earl Nightingale, all those kind of people, but also things that were much more esoteric than that, things that were more expansive. I was on the spiritual search for my whole life to figure out who I really was.
And to stop suffering.
What was that?
And to stop suffering, right? To try and stop suffering.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's really what it's about, And so Ordinary Visionaries is so fun because, we have ideas. An idea is just something, we don't create our ideas, they just arise. We wake up in the morning and maybe we had a dream. We didn't create that dream, it was just there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have dreams every night, and I wake up and then maybe that dream triggers an idea, and maybe that idea is associated with something that I'm doing. So I'm working on this project. And, just yesterday, I was thinking about Ordinary Visionaries and what's Ordinary Visionaries, and I want to write something for it. I want to write something before this interview.
Right.
That's what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, it just all came to me, here's what it is. And I put something into the computer and the first draft was pretty good. And then I had a shower, and then I came into my office, and then I worked on it for a couple hours and fine-tuned it. And, it's like, and I'll read it a little bit later, the thing I wrote, because I think that will help give an orientation to how I see it.
Definitely.
But the thing is that we think that we do things, but who really does the doing?
Now that's a big question.
It's a really big question, but it's something that I've had a lot of understanding about over the past few years. See, who we really are, and I talk a lot about this in my interview with Salvador Poe, which I highly recommend. He's the last teacher I had that really helped me understand these distinctions about who I am compared to who my mind is, who really does the doing, really what's happening here. And it really ties into Ordinary Visionaries.
Like who's doing the visioning, really?
Who's doing the visioning? Well, the vision just arises.
Yeah.
It's an idea. It's in our mind. Who we are is aware in the moment. I mean, it's so simple. Who I am is just here right now.
Yes.
And then, there are thoughts that we're aware of. There's our environment that we're aware of. There's the actions that we're aware of. But a thought comes up, and we can't really ascribe genuinely any authorship to that. It just sort of is there. And then our mind starts turning. Our mind is the most powerful computer in the world. It's powerful, more powerful than any other computer. Maybe it doesn't have as much data that it can hold as gigantic computers, but it sure can hold a lot of data. But
Yeah.
what it can do is amazing, right? So you have an idea, and then one of the ideas is, where could I go with this? What can I do with this? And that just arises as well. And you don't do it. The mind just goes to work. It's like giving a computer an instruction. You know, when you type into Google, blah, 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 and then there's the answer. It's very much like that.
Yeah.
And you're just there, sort of being there, watching it all happening and enjoying it.
So
So
go ahead.
go ahead.
I just want to interject. So would you say that we're all visionaries? Just our minds are all working in terms of creation, ideas, thoughts, possibilities, improvements, things that
Yeah.
would make us happier or more secure or more pleasurable. So that's just the way the mind's working.
Yes.
And would you agree that we're kind of on a continuum? Some of us are more creative. Like you're a very creative person. It's kind of, you cannot even help yourself to create a new business, a new idea, a new improvement, a new workshop.
Yeah.
Not everybody is firing on all those cylinders.
Right.
And it's interesting because knowing you and how kind of extraordinary you are that way, when you came up with the idea of ordinary visionaries, it was dissonant for me because you strike me as an extraordinary visionary, right? So I'm curious. I've been wanting to ask you, what would you call an extraordinary visionary? If you're not extraordinary, who is?
Well, you might, you think of an Einstein as an extraordinary visionary, right? Or a
Okay,
Steve
so that's
Jobs,
big
or
again.
Steve Jobs, something like that.
Okay,
So, in a way, an extraordinary visionary is simply an ordinary visionary who has accomplished a lot more. And, if you talk to those kind of people, they're often kind of modest about their accomplishments. It's just, well, I had an idea, and then, this happened and that happened, and I met with this person and this happened. And we come with innate abilities, and, depending on our background, our education, genetics have a lot to do with it. Some people are simply a lot smarter. They have a higher IQ.
right.
That wasn't their choice,
Or greater ability to focus or a stronger competitive nature.
Yeah. So, we shouldn't be egotistical about our ability to vision. It's just a natural component of human beings. And some people have more capacity and ability. And, depending on what school you went to, if you really went to a good school, or schools, or all the way starting from kindergarten to God knows where,
Right.
we'll end up being the person that we are. So we're all just ordinary people,
Yeah.
and we have visions, we have ideas. And the thing that makes us ordinary visionaries is not just that we have ideas, because a lot of people have great ideas. Oh, I had a great idea. I was going to make this thing there. Well, what did you do about it? No, nothing.
Right.
So an ordinary visionary, in my definition, is someone that has an idea and an intention to make a difference,
Yeah.
and goes into action
Excellent.
to make a
Excellent.
difference.
Yeah. And
So,
there's a consistency and a persistence that's engaged as well.
oh, absolutely. And you can follow your visions and through your intentions in any domain of your life. Like, there's so many things that I'm interested in life, and so many things that are entertainment for me, that are interesting to me, that I follow, like my world famous jazz collection. And I'm always listening to jazz and organizing my jazz playlist so that I've always got the best jazz to listen to, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have my ordinary visionary vision for jazz is just to always have jazz that is inspiring me and uplifting me. And other music, I also listen to a lot of rock and pop, usually from way back in the 70s. The music that was imprinted on me, when I was a teenager, that's the music we all like. And I have hundreds of albums in that categories as well. Anyway, so those kind of things, whatever we're inspired by. Go ahead.
Another quick question. So do you write these visions down? Because I know they come up and they excite you, they ignite you. And I know that you've got a background in being organized and time management and project management and all that. What's your to what degree do you actually codify it before you go build it or go grow it?
Well, some things I just think about and I do nothing about. Or something gestates for some time, and you notice you keep thinking about it. And then you're thinking about it, and all of a sudden you see a book about it, or you see something on the news about it, and then that kind of gets you interested about something.
Yeah, your mind is sorting for things that are relevant.
Yeah, and so your mind sort of acts as a magnet. Like attracts like. I'm interested in this, and what's in the news, or what, and I read a lot of emails every day from various things. I get the comics every day by email. There's a great service called Inbox Comics, and you can go and sign up for the comics you want, and every day you get the comics. And I used to love reading the comics in the newspaper, and now I get them in color every morning, and I read them because I like the humor from comics, and I love, and I share them with my wife sometimes, silly things.
You've also shared them in your newsletters too over the years.
Yeah. And, one of the first people I interviewed for Ordinary Visionaries was Robert Bostick, and he has a cartoon database. Wow. Got an idea, go to the cartoon database, you'll find a cartoon for it. I mean, I just love that stuff. So back to your question, do I write everything down? Not always. But if I think, yeah, that's something I want to, with Ordinary Visionaries, I was writing and thinking about this for some time. And sometimes I would turn on Zoom and just talk about it and record it, and just to get my ideas out, and what's possible for people, what's possible for me, and then somehow, I can't remember, the term ordinary visionary. First, it was everyday visionary, because I was looking just yesterday at a logo I'd created, and it said everyday visionary, but that just morphed into ordinary visionary.
Yeah.
I even grabbed the domain name for it, so at some point I'll probably have a website with it. So Ordinary Visionaries, and the thing I like about it is being a visionary is accessible to everyone. Having an idea, a goal, a plan, a dream is,
right.
If you don't have that, you're not a human being. That's just what people do. They see a possibility. Who was the guy that invented the wheel? How did that happen? Yeah. One day he saw a sort of round stone rolling down a hill.
And he said, aha.
And he said, aha. And he talked to his friend Og, and he said, what do you think about this? And he said, you're an idiot. Go, and he's, and whatever. But he was good at chipping things away. And then one day he stuck a hole through a thing in a rock, and and maybe that was the first 2,000 years of the wheel. Who knows how long it took? And obviously one of the most important inventions of mankind, because it just transformed possibilities for civilization, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's how ideas go. And see, this is a natural process. And have you ever read these studies? And I can't cite any specific things, but I was just reading about it recently. When you test children, young children of a certain age, kindergarten level children, on the level of creativity, they're at the genius level.
Interesting.
They just, what if we took that balloon and it was a house and it was, blah, 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 blah. It's just they see possibilities. There's no constraint on them. But by the time they get to 5th grade, that has plummeted dramatically. So, why is it plummeted dramatically? Well, this is the right way to do things, and you have to do this way, and that's wrong, and no, an elephant is not purple, it's gray.
Right.
Thank God for people like Dr. Zeus that said, elephants can be any color. Not only that, we can invent different kinds of animals, and they can talk and they can rhyme. And, thank God we have creators that stimulate minds like that. But we're naturally creative. We naturally have visions, ideas, and things and that we want to put together. But we have the suppression of outside things that then become our thoughts.
Right.
Well, if you ask most people, are you creative? The the largest number of people will say, I'm not creative.
Right.
I'm not an artist, but we're inherently
Yeah,
creative. That's
you're
what our
right.
minds do. They're
Solving
creative in that they're always problem solving and looking for
planning,
things, and
planning and problem solving and
yeah,
fixing things and fixing their life and fixing their relationships, and all that takes vision.
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of us and sometimes we're very creative in one domain of our life. And in another domain of our life, we're a total mess. And we really struggle at that domain.
It's like we reserve the right to be clueless in the other areas, right? I see that in my coaching work where someone will demonstrate brilliance in one area or another. And so I help them codify, well, what is it that you're doing there and how could you apply that to your marriage?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm on a big long-term, lifelong marriage project.
Aren't we all? Those of us that are married, it's an ongoing conversation. It's
Yeah.
an exploration. It's an unfolding. It's a creation. I mean, you can bring artistry. I would say that about my happy marriage is that it's in no small part due to Renee's creativity and my creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's a singer, a wonderful singer and artist that way, and musician.
No, but I mean creativity in terms of how do
Yeah.
we want to be together? How do we want our life to be? How do we want our
Yeah.
relationship to work?
And those are wonderful conversations to have, but it's been a challenge in my relationship. My wife is from Nepal. I won't get deeply into personal things about my relationship here, but she's from Nepal and lived in a completely different culture with a different mindset about the different roles and how people are and what's this and what's that, and and we had ridiculous amounts of conflict around those kinds of things, and so
The culture clash.
yeah,
The basic premises from which the world's occurring to you are different. And if you
yeah,
don't have understanding agreement on the basic premises, everything looks off because it's in a dance with a
yeah,
different reality.
yeah. Ultimately, she was a very good person and a very ethical person and a very nice person, and everything else was sort of up for grabs.
She's a very lovely person. And you're just recently getting tamed. You've been a monster most of your life.
I've been a monster.
Most of your life. You're just now getting civilized.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I'm getting civilized.
You're a 40-year overnight success, Robert.
Yeah, when it comes to some things, for sure. Yeah,
But isn't that true back to Ordinary Visionary? The people that you're interviewing that I've listened to, there's some commonalities.
yeah,
There's that stick with itness. There's the ability to focus. It's the ability to recover from disappointment or failure. It's the curiosity, the lifelong learning, the proactivity, all of that, right? The asking for and getting help. There's some basic principles that seem to be true of all the successful visionaries that you have interviewed. And you
yeah.
have all things.
That's true. Yeah. Doing the interviews had been so interesting because you see that those commonalities are there with everyone, and some people have had more success, and some people have had visions that are just starting to blossom for them, and who knows where it will go, and also everyone has their own particular limitations or stops.
Right.
Many
And
years
also
ago.
the logistics as well. Like who knows who's dealing with kids that are sick or a wife that is sick, or there's all so many different things that are part of the construct of one's life that impact their ability to stay focused or deliver on a promise, whatever it all is. Is that your broker calling?
Yeah. I just had to turn off my phone. My broker.
Sell.
I don't have a broker. So, where was I?
We were talking about the familiarity, the similarities between all the visionaries that you've interviewed.
Yeah. One of the things that a lot of people have is through their vision, they've created systems. you
Yeah.
know. So if you have a vision and you start to take action, well, you take action by organizing things. What's the first step? What's the next step? If you have a particular discipline like marketing, I broke up marketing into a number of different steps. There's this part and this part and this part. And the people that have really been successful have mastered the different parts and put it together as a system.
Yeah. I
So
think
the
that's
interview that I just published with Chris Henderson had a really powerful system of 5 conversations that he had with companies. And when you had that deep conversation with people in the companies, the company transformed. So that, and this didn't just happen overnight, but
no.
he learned these things from different places, and let me try to put that into my system. And so that's one of the things, is that people take their visions and turn them into systems
Yeah.
that are repeatable. I just love systems,
Yeah.
I have a system for making my breakfast in the morning, everything like that.
Well, each of those systems is a masterpiece, right? Like I think about your InfoGuru marketing manual. It was a masterpiece, right?
Right.
It's a lifetime of practice and borrowing from 50 different marketing books, and then you experiment with it and you see what works and doesn't work. And if you combine these things and create a hybrid over here, that works better. And
Yeah.
and then you codify it. Here's the system, and people get to benefit from that.
Yes.
It's kind of a technology, right? Like you created a technology, and then the next generations can market easier, more effectively,
Yeah.
more quickly than you.
But when it comes to being an ordinary visionary, I'm not sure I have all the systems together, or I don't even know if there are systems. It's sort of a core idea that can just explode in all kinds of directions. But there's a few things. One is you got an idea. Number 2, you nurture the idea. Number 3, you see a vision for a possibility, and then you go into action. But I think to be an ordinary visionary, in my definition, is whatever it is that you have a vision for and are trying to create, it has to be something that's about making a difference in some way.
Yeah.
The thing that always turned me off about business, and a lot of business still, is what's the purpose of business? It's to make money. And I think that is
It's like the cart before the horse. The purpose is to make the difference the service you're here to provide, and then
yes,
you'll make money.
yes. I read a great thing years ago. It says the whole thing about money in a business, money is just a policy that you have. Our policy is that we will be profitable. If we're not profitable, we can't continue the enterprise. And it might, I wanted to make enough money so I could have a sustainable lifestyle, so I could buy all my jazz records.
To sustain your habit.
And some people say, I work so I can travel, or whatever it is. I mean, money is obviously an important thing. But when money becomes the main thing, it sort of turns in on itself. It becomes kind of dark. It's like we can see this in our famous ex-president, Donald Trump, was only about success. And if you're not a multimillionaire, you're a friggin' loser. Right. I mean, it's just...
Well, it's pathological.
It's pathological.
Yeah.
So money is just when I look at a plan, when it's a business, I look, well, can this make money? Is it viable for the amount of money time and effort I put in? Is it a viable enterprise? Can I sell my services and packages? But ultimately, that's to make a difference for my clients. So all of this has to fit together.
Right. Yeah, because you want to solve for the whole picture, not just for the money.
Yeah. Right. So when you ask someone, what's your business about, and people talk about their business, I mean, a good question to ask is, well, what's the difference you want to make?
What's the mission? What's the purpose?
What's your mission, purpose, vision, whatever you want to call it? And if they don't have an answer to that, then their business is hollow. It's just something to make money.
Yeah. It's not
And
tapped into source. It's not tapped into the inspiration and enthusiasm that's
right.
available when you connect with
Now,
something meaningful.
now some people, I suppose, are inherently excited about just making money and having a lot of stuff. But that has never really attracted me much. Although I have had my times where I've been seduced by that, because there's a lot of seductive marketing in that area. You would think, yeah, if you can do that and make a lot of easy money, who wouldn't want that? But it always backfired on me.
Yeah.
Whenever that became the main thing, it just
Yeah.
backfired on me.
Yeah.
There's a part in our brain that is greedy, right? And
Yeah.
that's just something you have to deal with. The part in our brain that's selfish, the part in our brain that does not care about anybody else. Actually, maybe a big part of our brain.
That's where the civilizing principles of values comes in.
Right.
So if you only solve for the greed or the fear, you get one set of actions and then one set of results. But if you solve for what would somebody who valued integrity do or not do, what would somebody valued relationship or communication or the environment,
Right.
and profitability being one of the values, but how would you solve for all of them?
Yeah.
Right.
The thing is everybody really wants to make a difference. People want to make.
I believe that's true. I think that's I think for everyone, their basic mission is to make to make a difference, to make an impact,
to make a contribution.
And so one of the greatest gifts you can give them is to acknowledge them for their impact on you.
Yes.
Or on wherever, that I see you and I see the difference that you make. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So letting other people make a contribution to you is making a contribution to them.
Absolutely.
And so it's a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my best to make a contribution to people, but in doing so, people make a contribution to me. I mean, every time I do an interview, I learn something new. I get another nuanced insight into, what did they do and where did that come from and why are they excited about that? And every single interview has been interesting. Some have been kind of mind-blowing and some have been more ordinary, but still all valuable.
Right.
Anyway,
I think it might be time for you to read this.
I think it might be time.
It's an extraordinary little piece, and I think it will reflect much of what you shared already, but it'll also give us some more stuff to double click on in the time remaining.
Okay, so let me read it.
Please.
It's called Live Your Vision. Living your vision means connecting deeply with what truly matters to you and allowing it to guide you in everyday actions. It's about recognizing that your vision isn't a distant goal, but a present reality you can cultivate every day. Imagine your vision as a seed planted in your heart, needing daily care and nurturing to grow. Every morning, ask yourself, how can I honor my vision today? Take small, deliberate steps that align with your true purpose. It's not about achieving grand milestones overnight, but consistently nurturing your vision with your thoughts, words, and actions. Living your vision requires true courage and authenticity. It means being true to yourself even when things are challenging. Trust your inner wisdom and let it guide you, especially when doubts arise. Embrace the journey, knowing that every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to the vision you hold in your mind and heart. Feel the presence of your vision in everything you do. It's not just the grand moments, but in the quiet, everyday actions that align with your deepest values. Let your vision be a source of joy and fulfillment, a reminder of your unique purpose. Live your vision with intention, love, passion, and resilience. Create a life that is not only meaningful to you, but that also touches the hearts of others. This is the true power of living your vision, transforming yourself, and in doing so, illuminating the path for others.
Yeah, that's just beautiful, Robert. I love it.
And the very last thing might be the most important thing at the end. Now, what is your vision? And here's the crux of it. We've got to get out of the theory of it and articulate it, clarify it, commit to it,
break it down into steps.
And everybody does that their own way, and there's no one way to do it. But that first thing, remember that quote about the Himalaya from the people that in the Himalayan Scottish Himalayan expedition. When one, I should look it up and read it for you. You want to look it up for me?
Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would otherwise never have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. I have learned to respect one of Goethe's couplets, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Is that the one you meant?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to that like more than 40 years ago. I've read it a zillion times. And it's that it's not just a good idea. It's a commitment to move forward with it, a commitment that I will do that. And that doesn't mean you necessarily, I will build a $60 billion company. It's like, I will do my best to get this company started, whatever it is. I will take the next action.
And recognizing that it's a mountain that you're climbing, and there's base camp 1, base camp 2, base camp 3, and then you can, to your quote there, you can enjoy the journey by knowing that who you are and where you're going is clear, and every action is taken. And so you're not waiting to get to the top to celebrate.
Yeah.
You're celebrating increments along the way because you know you're on track and you're moving forward. And if you keep going, you'll get there. You know, It's interesting. Lately, I've been talking to a lot of 20-somethings. I've got friends, clients, family who have 20-something kids that are failing to launch. And so I've been doing my little True North intro for them.
Failing to launch.
Failing to launch, yeah. And what I'm noticing is this trend of many of these younger people think they should be billionaires already. They think that there's something.
Really?
Or some, that's an exaggeration, but not by much.
Have some breakthrough in the XYZ space, and blah 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 blah.
They don't realize that their journey is going to be a 40-year thing, and they just need to pick start working and putting one foot in front of the other, and that they're not the things they think they should have and want to have now aren't for another 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that.
But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, what I find kind of fascinating, I put out, I'd like to interview you as an ordinary visionary, and I got good response. And then I invited specific people I knew who had been clients, and most of them said, yes, I'd do the interview. But I'm kind of amazed at the number of people who did not respond. I mean, I have close to 20,000 people on my email list, and of course, if 20,000 people respond, how could I possibly handle that? Well, that would be a good problem to have, I guess. But so many people, it's like, well, I'm not an ordinary visionary, whatever. And then you learn about that person, you realize, look at all the things that they've accomplished, all the things they've done. And they say, oh, that's nothing. So there's a part of us that's always putting ourselves down. Oh, yeah, I'm not really good enough. I had a conversation with a few months back of a client that I'd worked with years ago. And I saw him on LinkedIn or something. And I said, hey, how are you doing? And good. Hey, let's have a chat. And so we got on Zoom and talked. And he told me a lot of the great things he'd accomplished. But the overarching sort of tone was he hadn't accomplished enough yet.
Mm.
And he'd accomplished what he'd accomplished, and he hadn't accomplished what he hadn't accomplished.
Right.
But the fact that it's like I am not going to be fulfilled, satisfied, happy, whatever, until I have, you know,
Yeah.
had nirvana and success to the max, which
Yeah.
is just silly because, look at all he's accomplished, all the people he's worked with, all the teams that he's turned around, all of these things. And yet it's sort of like, not good enough. And for everyone listening to that, do you hold on to that? I worked a lot with beliefs. I studied the Byron Katie work almost starting 20 years ago, read her book and had a big revelation about that to help people get past their limiting beliefs.
Particularly
And
around marketing. I remember you were experimenting with using it, particularly with their beliefs around marketing, which is great.
yeah, their beliefs around marketing and making money and reaching out to people. And, I can't reach out to somebody, this will
Absolutely
happen.
true.
We make up all these stories, all these limitations that seem very, very true to us. This is possible, but this is definitely not possible for me. Well, who says so? I'm not saying you can do everything and anything. We do have limitations in terms of our experience, our background, our education. Nevertheless, most of these limitations are self-imposed, but it's not our fault that they were self-imposed either.
Right.
These we got from our education, from our parents, from society, and whatever.
Back to your opening comments, about I think I read recently there's 400 to 600 characteristics that scientists are codifying that we come out already spinning in an orbit around, just from our genetic heritage. On the spectrum of introversion, extroversion,
Right.
acuity, lack of acuity, courage, lack of courage, like all these characteristics that are already kind of hardwired. And so we can't really take credit for it if
Right.
the soup
And
is,
some of these are just genetic, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some kids start playing the piano at 5 years old.
Well, they had
And
to be in a house with a piano. Like, what if they were on a farm someplace and never got a hold of piano?
exactly.
Like Mozart, for example. So in
Yeah.
Mozart's day, there were very, very few pianos. His father happened to have one.
Yeah.
And so he started playing at 3 years old. And had he been in a farm where most everybody else was living and working, there'd be
Yeah.
no Mozart.
But who knows? He might have been the genius of animal husbandry. You never know. Who
Wow.
knows? Yeah,
Well,
who knows? But
all right.
just for ourselves, the fact that we have an idea of something for ourselves. Everybody that's a self-employed person and is on their own and left the company and decided to take the risk, they're automatically in the category of ordinary visionary. They had a vision. They wanted to be on their own. They wanted to do consulting or coaching or training or engineering or whatever. In some cases, they needed a lot of education for that, such as a law degree or an engineering degree or whatever. But we often think, well, this limitation is just the way it is, and we can easily tear that apart. The Byron Katie question starts with one of the most powerful questions in the world. You have that thought. Is that true?
Can you absolutely know?
I absolutely know it's true. Yes, I absolutely know. I could never do that, whatever. And then you look at how do you behave when you believe that?
How do you think and feel and behave if you believe that thought?
Right. And then if you couldn't think that thought, if you woke up in the morning and that thought could not go through your brain anymore, and it just wasn't there, it had disappeared, what would be possible for you? And I've done that exercise with people, and people go, oh, well, I would do this, I would do this, I would do that.
Yes.
But then it takes, some people are so stuck in a groove of negativity, limitation, fear, stuff like that. But look, for most of the people listening to this, they're probably beyond that kind of thing. And my challenge to people is to really nurture that vision. I mean, read this every day.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a link to it so you can print it out and stick it on your wall or something. Just what is that vision? And it's like, have it be a little thing that you just sort of play with.
Could even be
You know,
a vision for this weekend. Like, what's
yeah,
your vision for
exactly.
the weekend?
Yeah.
A vision for a date night with your spouse, or a
Yeah.
vision for a family outing.
Yeah. And, we can't have it everything all at once. There are sort of many, many domains in our lives, just our simple lives. And some things I've struggled with my whole life, but I haven't given up. Like I have terrible time going to sleep on time and getting enough sleep my whole freaking life since I was in school. But it's something I haven't given up on. I keep trying different things and trying to put on the right music to help me go to sleep. And I bought a new mattress, and that helped a lot because I'm getting older and more achy, and whatever it is. So what I see people getting into, this is just the frickin' way it is. And what's the saying? Life is hard and then you die. And then we take that to the extreme in a lot of different things. It's just, um, I shouldn't say this, but my wife cannot back the car out of our gateway. She can't do that. She's afraid she'll rip the side off of it. So when she needs to go out, I do it for her. But it's like, you could learn this, but you can't have the vision for that because the vision is always, I will crash the car. And so if she has that vision, she probably will crash the car.
Totally. Yes.
So, think of something little that's really been hard for you. But it's not like a really big significant thing. Maybe you've never been able to cook a particular meal or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, make that a project. Have a vision for I could make coq au vin or whatever.
And are you
There's a
suggesting
recipe. You can talk to someone that's done it. You could take a class.
are
And
you, are you
yet it's like,
suggesting
I want to stay inside my comfort zone of what I cannot do, because if I go outside of that, what could happen? Well, I could fail. I
yeah.
could make coq au vin, feed it to my family, and they would all die. So can't have that happen.
No. So,
So
Robert,
yeah,
are you suggesting, because two things come to mind. One is expanding the idea of where being an ordinary visionary shows up. It's not just in our businesses, it's in our lives
right,
and all.
right.
So that's one point. Then there's the other point of these limiting beliefs, and we can tend to we tend to bite off more than we can chew. What if we were to practice visioning and successfully attaining or accomplishing smaller and smaller or smaller visions, and it emboldens us to bite off a little more, a little bit. If I can do coq au vin, maybe I can do something else. Or if I can do it for the family, maybe I can invite others over for dinner. So you
Yeah.
expand it over time.
I
So
mean,
so
this kind of thing, yeah, exactly. This kind of thing happens and it might expand. You might say, 2 years ago I couldn't cook. Now I'm a chef in a restaurant. It's happened.
yeah, sure.
A few years ago I couldn't do X, but I got interested and I saw someone do it. And if you look back at your path, you realize, well, there was a vision, there was an idea, there was a conversation, there was a first step, there were steps back, there was, we don't know there's no defined pathway for any kind of success.
And you have to start somewhere and say, this is something, I have a vision, let's get started. It reminds me, I was
Yeah.
going for a walk with my grandfather. He was 85 at the time. His retirement community, there's fields and a tree and a pond down below. And there was an older lady painting plein air. And my grandfather said, would you like to meet my friend Esther? And I said, of course. So we walk across the field, and there she is, this big sunbonnet. And she's quite older than my grandfather. And the painting is magnificent. It's this beautiful landscape, just magnificent.
Wow.
We got to talking with her, and I said, so how long have you been painting? Or I said, when did you start painting? She said, when I was 80. I said, do you mind if I
I
ask
think he
you?
was 80.
Do you mind if I ask you how old you are right now? She said, I'm 100 next week.
Oh, wow.
So she had a vision for being a painter. And she said, my whole life I wanted to be a painter, but I never thought I could. I put it off. I just thought maybe I'm too old for this. And I finally said, well, what am I waiting for? And
Yeah, one day.
she stacked enough paintbrushes over 20 years to become quite masterful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of pleasure in that chapter of her life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Beautiful.
for a lot of people, it's like, well, when we retire, our life is over.
Not these days. We got another 15 years than the average
Yeah,
person.
well, who knows? But I don't know exactly the statistics on this. But a lot of people die very soon after retirement because they don't have anything to live for anymore.
Right.
And when I said I want to retire, I want to stop chasing money and trying to sell people programs. It's just like I've done it. I'm complete. I've done a good job at it, and I'm lucky enough to earn enough money and invest well that I can retire. I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Some people can't. Some people live in poverty, whatever. But so I don't have any blueprint for my future life except to live as an ordinary visionary.
Yeah. And you're doing that.
Just like everybody else. It's like you get up in the morning and you go, well, what's new? What's possible? What can I do today? What can I do on this particular project? What can I do here? What can I do there? I was writing my newsletter for years and years and years, 25 years, and then I continued it. And I said, okay, I'm going to let that drop away right now and just post the visionary interviews twice a week. But I still keep writing, so who knows what I'm going to write or what I'm going to do. I might end up doing a big retreat workshop for ordinary visionaries. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I do know that if I do it, you have to charge money for that. Any profits will go to charity.
Great. So that shifted as well.
So, you can have fun with that. What's a charity that I can give to that I can make a difference with?
I love it.
And I just love that story of the 100-year-old lady who's been painting for 20 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that
very
amazing?
inspiring? Very inspiring.
Just that moment must have just blown your mind, right?
Totally. And my grandfather too. My grandfather worked for 40 years for the Department of Agriculture, had a very successful career as a forester, retired, and then all of the things that me and my family are most proud of my grandfather he did after he was 65.
Wow.
So he helped found the Quaker Outdoor Adventure summer camp me and my brother used to go to, and I was a counselor there. He helped found the Quaker High School, Sandy Spring Friends School. He helped found the Quaker outreach program on Capitol Hill so Quakers could come and lobby for peace and stuff like that. And these are all things he did after he was 60. It's almost like he spent his life in training.
Yeah.
To fill the real possibility of his life from 65 to 85.
I love that. Life starts at 65. So, why not? If you've got the energy.
You're saying that, right? Like, how old are you now? How old are you?
72.
Damn, you're young, 72. So anyhow, you're 72 and you're retired, but who knows what you're going to do in the next 10 years? It might be your opus.
I have no idea.
Yeah, but it's not that it's about that, but who knows? The possibilities are big.
Yeah, the whole thing about I think this is an important point. I want to achieve this big thing, and in the back of your mind is that, and when I do that, I will be satisfied.
Right,
I will be happy. I will be filled, and that is a crock of shit.
Yeah,
it's because then what? After that, you just sit there in bliss, and they bring flowers and pour them on you and pour nectar down your throat or something like that,
Sure.
I achieved my big goal. I'm a multi-zillionaire. You make your first billion and you're not happy. Well, not until I make my second, until I'm, all that kind of,
right,
noxious stuff,
Yeah, it didn't work.
So
there.
So the joy is in the playing, in life, in the moment, and having fun with whatever I do. I think of my grandfather. My grandfather was a big influence on me. It was my my mother's father, and he was a World War I veteran.
Mm.
Came back from the war and started um, a little store, and he wrote a book about it called The Prairie Storekeeper, and he wrote about how he started this little store and just how he learned about business. It was like, well, it sounds a lot like me. And then
Yeah.
he wrote a book called The End of Steel, which was all about the railroad across Canada. And then he wrote a book called Canada at Vimy, which is about he was the big World War battle called Vimy, and it was a bestseller in Canada.
Wow.
And so he wrote books, well into his 70s and 80s. And then he was also an artist. We have 3 of his paintings in our house. Did these one. He lived and this is I got to share this.
Good.
Did I tell you this story about my house? So my wife had a vision to buy a house. So that was driving her. Let's find a house. Let's find a house. And I said, I don't want to buy a house. Okay, fine. So one day I go to Santa Cruz to give a talk, and I mentioned something about finding a house. And a lady came up and gave me a card and said, call this lady. She'll make you feel like you're her only client. Isn't that a great?
Yeah.
I said, okay, very great. So I called and said, yeah, I think we're looking for a house. And what are you looking for? I think I want a place with a deck. Okay, fine. So, and then I bumped into someone at a workshop I was doing that did financing. And it was the only time I met her. It was the only time she came to that workshop. It was a regular monthly thing. The only time she came, she said, yeah, I can help you. And she provided the financing. And that I got financing where I was because my credit wasn't great, but somehow miraculously I got financing. This all came out of my wife's intention. So still I was kind of resisting. So the real estate agent said, okay, I've got some houses for you to see, and why don't you come up and meet with me and we'll do it. So we drove up and she took us to see some houses. And we went to Boulder Creek because we had driven through here once years before and said, this is kind of a cool place. It's a place in the Bay Area, in the South Bay, above San Jose and Silicon Valley. It's a big mountain and it's a redwood forest with a river running through it. And I said, that sounds kind of cool. And the first house they showed us was this really wonderful sort of big cottage, wooden cedar shingles with a river in the backyard. And I saw it and I said, we're buying this house. This is great. And it was so funny because my wife said, well, I don't know if this is the right house. I mean, so I had to convince her because it was like, you don't find a house like in a redwood forest with a river in the backyard.
And a deck.
And it had this deck that had been hand built by the previous owner. It's 2 levels. It's got wavy hand carved railings, and it's just amazing. And I just fell in love with this place.
Yeah.
And then there was a little side deck next to the kitchen. I built my office there.
Yeah.
I had and talk about a vision. I said, okay, yeah, let's do that. And I went on my computer and drew a plan for it in an hour, gave it to the guy, and I said, here it is. Do you need an architect for this? I said, no, this'll do. And then he built it from that, exactly as I envisioned. It has big windows.
Right now, and the window over your computer looks at the river.
Yeah, right over there is the river.
Yeah.
I won't move my camera.
Dreams do come true for ordinary visionaries.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the last thing. One day, years later, I realized I bought my grandfather's house.
Oh,
not literally, but figuratively, because their house in the woods by a river was a cedar-shaped house.
Wow, interesting.
Just looked very much like it from the outside, and I just loved that place. So tap into what is it you loved? What is it that excited you when you were a kid? What is it? Notice that is drawing you forward because, there's something there that was very real to you. I just loved my grandparents. They were just wonderful, nurturing, sweet people,
Beautiful.
So maybe this is something that we can wrap it up with that I've been thinking of. We all have in ourselves what we might call a magnetic center.
True north, baby. True north.
True north. but it's a little different than your true north in this concept. This is an idea that I learned from one of my early teachers, George Gurdjieff, and in his book, in the book of one of his students, in one of the lectures, he talks about magnetic center. And I just went back and read that before the interview today. And magnetic center is that which is attracted to which is real. Real and genuine, love, contribution, making a difference.
Truth, right.
Truth, reality, the things that uplift us, the things that inspire us. So we all have this magnetic center that works to some degree or other that's attracted to that. And we know the difference between good and bad. We know the difference between productivity and laziness. We know the difference between love and hate. We know that. We know the difference between when I'm aware and alive and when I'm down and depressed. And so in a way, being an ordinary visionary is tapping into your already there magnetic center and letting it guide you. And it's not something you're doing, it's there. But just to be aware of it. What am I pulled towards that uplifts myself? And in the last few weeks, I've been a Star Wars fan since I was a kid. I watched the first Star Wars when it came out. I was just the right age. I was 10 or 12 years old, whenever it was. And I loved Star Wars. I watched every single show when I was just a little kid. And then the Next Generation came out. And that's when the Next Generation was going on when we were living in the house on Haight Street.
Now, you're talking Star Trek, then Star Wars, right?
No. Did I say Star Wars?
Yeah.
Star Trek.
Yeah.
Also like Star Wars, but Star Trek.
Yeah.
Different. It had the TV series, the Star Trek series. And then when the Next Generation was on, was when we were living in the house and I don't know if you watched it with me, but I watched every show.
Yeah.
And just loved watching Star Trek. And then there was a big break, and then there was another follow-on one, and then a few years, and then a new one came out called Enterprise. And a new one after that called Strange New Worlds. And I just loved those shows. Loved. And so the final season of Star Trek Discovery is happening this year. And in fact, today is Thursday. The very last show is today, in fact. So I'm going to watch that. So I've been watching that and really being excited. But not only that, I decided I'm going to go back and watch the whole season from the beginning. When you really like a show, you're often amazed at what you
missed.
You saw everything, but you missed so many things and so many stuff. And I'm just saying that Star Trek comes out of what's the guy that developed it?
Roddenberry or
Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry came out of his magnetic center. This feeling of a future that can be good, that can be expansive, that can be exploring, that can be people cooperating. And of course, there's a lot of wacky stuff about fighting aliens and stuff like that. But it's so inspiring, the deep ideas in Star Trek about our better selves and going for the bigger thing. So I think I should wear one of those Star Trek emblems around all the time. It's like that. Yes. live long and prosper, actually. So looking for movies and TV series like that inspire you. We just saw a great one on, I can't remember what it was on. It was on Paramount Plus called A Gentleman in Moscow.
Yeah, wonderful serease. And
did you see it?
And Ewan McGregor is just extraordinary in it.
Yeah. And
Renee and I read the book first, and then when we saw the series, we said that would be good. Yeah, really good. Now let me do this because we're starting to run out of time. How does this relate to Ordinary Visionary? Let's find a way to powerfully wrap up our
Yeah,
inquiry.
well, things that are look. We want to have visions. We want to make a difference. We want to take the next step. We want to live our vision. Well, to do that, let in positive influences. Let your magnetic center guide you to positive influences.
Got it.
Go for walks in nature. Go to wonderful, inspiring movies that make you see new possibilities. Read books like that. Hang around with people that can
They amplify your resonance. They turn
amplify
you up.
your resonance. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it is. So
That magnetic attractive force. Yeah. And you find inspiration in them. They find, yeah,
exactly. So
I get it. Beautiful.
I just love that Moscow movie because here's this guy that was committed to house arrest for his whole life, and yet he transformed
He did, didn't he?
everybody around him.
It was beautiful.
Yeah,
What's possible, right?
yeah.
It was beautiful. Isn't this beautiful, Robert?
Okay, you.
On a moment together. Don't you dare edit this out.
So anyway, that's what Ordinary Visionaries is about. So my challenge to you is to live every day as an ordinary visionary.
Thank you, Robert. You are an inspiration, and you are truly an extraordinary visionary. I'm not going to let that one go. I love you dearly. Thanks for all the work that you've done. Thank you for all the work you're going to do. Thank you for being my brother. I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
I love you too, buddy.
All right. Take care, man.
Bye bye.